It is just me and Jude today. We're doing our AFC East division preview for the 2023 NFL season. So we're going to go through from 4 to 1, talk about each team. This is supposed to be kind of in depth. That's why we're only doing one division in a podcast. But yeah, do you have anything to say before we get into it?
Nah, man, let's get it.
Yeah, this is the hardest division to rank. We'll say that, at least in my opinion. I don't know about Jude, but this is the hardest division for me to rank. But yeah, I'll explain myself, and Jude's gonna have to explain himself here. Dolphins at 4 for Jude. Patriots at 4 for me. So I thought he was gonna have the Patriots fourth. I think everybody in the entire world has the Patriots fourth in this division. So explain why the Dolphins are fourth.
All right. I'm definitely going on a limb. I'm not gonna act like everyone has the same predictions as me, but I think the Dolphins they're setting up to be the most disappointing team in the league this year. Um, Tua to me is not. He's not a quarterback. I'm not really a believer in Tua. He didn't really show. I mean, he impressed me last year. I will say that. But he was much more accurate than I thought. I mean, I knew he was accurate coming out because I really liked him as a prospect. But his decision making it's a little overrated, I would say. Just watching going back watching some of the film from last year, and I would pretty much 100% give his deep ball game to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. I don't know if you would agree, but I think his arm talent or arm strength is legit, like at the bottom of the league, possibly in a tier of his own, like at the bottom. Um, like if you look at last year, they started out super hot, right? Tua came out, he was on fire. I will say that they were on fire to start the year, and in the back half of the year, he ended the season completing 52% of his throws and 0-4 in his last 4 games. Okay, that's pretty pathetic, especially with the talent they have. I think his numbers, like his overall season numbers, look great because he missed a few games last season, and he missed a Cincy game. They had a top 10 defense. He missed both the Jets games. They have a possibly top 5 defense, and New England, who has a top 10 defense, I would say. Um, and he didn't get to play some of those better teams. He benefited from playing those bottom defensive tier teams, and I don't really trust him to stay healthy. It sucks to say, all the concussions he's had, and I think the defense it's definitely it could take a step up, but I think it's going to take some time because they acquired Vic Fangio, and Ramsey's out for who knows how long, possibly half the season. I think that's going to hurt. So I have the Dolphins. I'll say 8 and 9 this year.
Okay. Now that I'm looking at it, okay, yeah, okay. Anyway, on to the uh, Patriots. Why are the Patriots last, in my opinion? Um, well, looking at this division, I feel I feel better about the Patriots than I would say I do last year. But I just think this division, you're looking at the 3 teams ahead of them. I think Mac is pretty close to Tua. I think it's close, but I think they have the worst quarterback in the division. Definitely the worst receiving core in the division. The defense is going to be pretty good. I'll give them that, but I don't think it's going to be better than the Dolphins or the Jets defense. It could be better than the Bills, but even that's a toss up. So it's just a very tough division, and I think um, really the playmakers are what separate the other 3 teams from the Patriots. Now, do I still think the Patriots can go out and win 7, 8, maybe 9 games? Yes, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to compete with the other 3 teams in this division. I'm looking at about 7 and 10 or 8 and 9 for the Patriots. Um, it's weird. It could go either way because I do think that, like I said, the roster is definitely a roster that could win like 9, 10 games if they win the AFC South or something. But in this division, I think that they're going to be around that 7, 8 to win range. Um, and I don't think they match up very good with the teams in the division. So that's going to be tough. But yeah, the Patriots, very, very weird team to kind of project for this year. But yeah, I think the division plays a big role. And the Dolphins, I'm going to touch on it more whenever I get to where I have them ranked. But yeah, so that's kind of it for this part. We can go on to number 3. Number 3, interesting. Okay,
Mm,
so you have the Patriots 3, and
wow.
I have the Bills 3. We're going to be all over the place with this division. Um,
Wow.
I just talked about the Patriots, so I'll let you follow up on that before I go to the Bills.
Okay. I'm here to say Bill Belichick is far from washed. All right. It's like the amount of slander he's been getting, ever since Tom Brady left. It's really honestly disrespectful um, because he's been great for so long, and he's kind of been dealt a bad hand. His offenses have really had nothing. I think his defenses have still been good. I mean, if you look at the numbers, they've still been top 10, the past few seasons. But last year's defense was legit like special. Um, they and the only thing I will say about Bill Belichick is I don't know what he was thinking hiring a bad defensive coordinator to be their offensive coordinator in Matt Patricia. That's the one thing I will say was pretty terrible on his part. But I think Bill O'Brien was a serious upgrade. Um, he was obviously a terrible GM in Houston, but um, he was always great as a coach. Or as a play caller in Houston. The Texans always had great offenses. And then he went to Alabama last year, so I think he'll give Mac a better feel than what he had last year. Because last year it was just you looked at the stuff from training camp, you just knew it was going to go bad from the jump. And I really liked their draft. I really liked that they took Christian Gonzalez. Their cornerback room was pretty good already, but now, like, Gonzalez can legit match up with, like, the ones in the league, like the number one receivers. They didn't really have a true number one, but that's going to really help. Um, yeah, and I think the offense isn't super talented, like I said earlier, but it's much better than what they've had. Juju Smith. Um, that's a big plus to whatever the heck they had receivers last year. And I think the Patriots, if their offense can
They
just be
added
competent,
they added Mike Gesicki too to the tight end
Mike
room.
Gesicki, that's another one. Thank you. That's solid. Um, I think as long as their offense is competent, I think Bill is going to put out a top 5 defense. Honestly, um, I think it's going to improve from last year. And I'm saying I think the Patriots are going to go. I'll say 9-8. I'll say 9-8 this year.
This is just so weird because, like, looking at the Patriots as we talk about them, their defense is legitimate, deep at almost every position, and they have some
Hmm.
really good players. Like, yeah, it's a legitimate top 10, potentially top 5 defense. Then you're looking at the offense, even adding Zeke to back up Stevenson, who I think is a top 10 running back and is poised to take another jump this year. You're looking at a very good running game behind that pretty good O line. The receiving core, I like the depth. I like how they have the 2 tight ends, Henry, Gesicki, Juju, Parker, Kendrick Bourne, Tyquan Thornton. I like the depth. I just think they're missing that one. If they added a number 1 receiver, this would be looking really good. So you put the coaching on top of that, and then I like Mac more than most. I think he gets too much hate for last year. Situation was really bad. No number 1 receiver, as you said. Patricia calling plays. I think Mac and Tua. Whenever I did quarterback tiers, I believe I had Mac 14, Tua 13. They were 1 apart. So I think that they're pretty much similar quarterbacks. Who would you prefer out of them two, by the way?
That's a good question. Um, ugh, I don't know. I'm gonna have to plead the fifth on that. I mean, either one. I feel like you're
So
not losing
so
with
you think
either
they're
one.
close. You think they're
I think
close.
they're super close. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So I
they're
think
on the
it's
same
close.
tier.
I think it's close at quarterback. It's just so weird because looking at it, like as we're talking, it's like okay, the Patriots. You could be right on this that they could end up being better than the Dolphins. There's just something about the Dolphins that I really like that I'm going to get into as we go along. But yeah, on to my number 3, the Bills. Why do I have the Bills number 3? To be honest, this division, I'm just like guessing at this point. As much as I want to say that I'm confident with the Bills 3. I'm not, but for the reasons being, I think when you compare them to the rest of the division, the lack of running game definitely is going to be something that brings them back from the Jets or the Dolphins or even the Patriots. They're just not going to be able to run the football to the level of those teams. But then you say, okay, well, they have the best quarterback in the division. Yes. But where I'm looking at this team regressing, I think that the defense isn't going to be as good as the other three units. It's still a pretty good defense, but I think the linebacker room is looking, outside of Milano, now that they lost Tremaine Edmonds, it is looking very weak there. And then the cornerback room, like Tre'Davious White, he hasn't been an elite player in like 3 or 4 years since 2019. He's been a solid to good corner, but like he's still a good corner. But outside of him, Dane Jackson is your number 2. See if Kyle Elam can step up. But they don't have a very good cornerback room outside of White, who, what is he now? Probably a top 15-ish cornerback. He's not a top 5 guy like he once was a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then the D line, it has some good players, but I just don't like it as much as like the Jets or even the Dolphins D line, in my opinion. So I think the defenses of the Jets and Dolphins are gonna be a step or two ahead of the Bills. And on top of that, the Bills lost the defensive coordinator Leslie Frazier. Of course, there's going to be another year without Dable, who the offense did take a little bit of a step back last year, but not too big of a step back. So I'm looking at the Bills right now as a 10 to 11 win team. It's just I'm really high on the other two teams, so that's why they're number 3. I think that they're going to be competing for the 7th seed, maybe the 6th seed. I don't see them being like a playoff lock like they have been in past years. I don't know if we disagree on that. We'll get to that when you talk about the Bills. But I'm kind of going against what I said last podcast. I said that I looked at the last 2 years, 15 out of 16 division winners had the best quarterback. So I'm kind of going against that.
Yeah, you are going against that.
I'm going against that, but if I think about it, who was the one that broke that? It was the Niners last year with Purdy not having Geno Smith, who was the best quarterback in that division. What's the coaching tree? McDaniel, Shanahan. Similarities. They put together a stud defense, which is what the Niners have had the last few years. They kind of run a similar system. They have the big-time playmakers. So I like a lot of what Miami brings to the table. We'll get into that, though. But, yeah, and I also think about, like, those a few years there in the 2010s, Aaron Rodgers missed the playoffs. Like, it happens. You can have a very good quarterback and then just some things don't fall your way in a certain given season. And I feel like that's going to be the season for the Bills. Not saying I have them missing the playoffs yet. I'm between that 6, 7, 8 seed range. So we'll see if I have them in or not in our final predictions in a couple weeks. But, yeah, that's going to be number 3. So anything you want to add before we go to number 2, or should we go to number 2?
We can go number 2.
All right. On to number 2. Well, same team. Jets.
Yep.
Oh, I forgot to hold on. You talk about the Jets. I'm going to edit the graphic real quick.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, talk about the Jets.
Okay. The Jets, they're a legit Super Bowl. They're a legit Super Bowl contender. But they're also, I feel like there's probably, I mean, the AFC is so loaded this coming season. But I say they're probably like the lowest team on that tier. I mean, their ceiling is as high as anybody, but their floor, like, they could be bad. Like, if their O-line, the way it's sounded like it has been a training camp, that's really scary because Aaron Rodgers he's not the type of guy to, put up with that. But I think the Nathaniel Hackett was obviously a terrible head coach. He was horrible. But I think as offensive coordinator with Rodgers, I think they meshed really well. I mean, he won 2 MVPs them in Green Bay. And last season, I feel like was a bit of a blip for Rodgers. I don't think that season was telling as to how good he still is. I just think he was frustrated the whole year. He had no receivers and they were all young, and he doesn't really like to mess with the young receivers. He doesn't really like to trust them. and the Jets defense should be, top 5 range with Salah. Last season they were 3rd in defensive success rate according to PFF. And they didn't create many turnovers either. And that's a tough thing to say, but that can vary year to year. You just never know. But I think Rodgers takes them to a level, um, just a step above the Patriots and Dolphins, just because of the it factor he has over Mac and Tua. I think he'll put them over the top as long as I feel like if they start slow, it could get ugly. I'll say that I don't think they can start out with the crap like 2-4 or 1-4. I think they have to start fast, which kind of sucks with their schedule because Rodgers might get frustrated really quick.
Yeah, the schedule's rough, early.
The schedule's rough. But it's a tough schedule, but I think it's a really well-rounded team. So I'll say 11-6.
Yeah, so these top 2 teams, the Jets. Yeah, the Jets. Why do I have them over the Bills? I feel like you said it could go very bad. I disagree. I think that because of how good of a roster this is, the floor is pretty high. Like, if, say, hypothetically, if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, I still think this team can win 8 games with Zach Wilson because of how
They did
good
last year.
Yeah, they won. Well, they won 7, but yeah,
It's
they were like
basically, yeah,
they were 7-5, I think, at one point. So
7-4. Yeah.
okay, wow, yeah, I think that this roster, just because how good it is, top to bottom, you can make a case they have a top 2-3 defense in football. Pass rush is absolutely loaded and it's deep. Then they have the best corner as of last year as a rookie in Sauce Gardner. I like the addition of Adrian Amos to the secondary. But yeah, then on the offense side of the ball, the receiving core is pretty good. It does kind of suck that Corey Davis retired, but hopefully Hardman can fill in that number 3 receiver role. But I love the 1-2 punch of Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard. And then the offensive line is where we get to the concern, like you said. The tackles, Mekhi Becton hasn't done much in the NFL, and Dwayne Brown is coming off a career worst year as he's aging. So that's going to be a little iffy. But what to like about this team, like I said, the overall roster with the receivers, the quarterback, I like the coaching staff personally. Then you have the loaded defense. I think they're going to be able to win in multiple ways. They can win with the run game with those 2 running backs, with Rodgers throwing to Wilson, and with that defense. So I just look at it as a very well-rounded team. I have them at 11-6. I'm floating between 11 and 12 wins, so we're about the same on the Jets. But yeah, we can move on to number 1. So 2 teams we've kind of already hit on, but this just to explain ourselves. I'm going to talk about the Dolphins real quick, since I guess this is kind of an interesting take that I have them 1 and you have them 4. I don't know if we're going to have this on any other one of these.
We might. Yeah, we're not.
We'll see. Oh yeah, we might. Next one. But anyway, number 1, Dolphins. So why do I have the Dolphins 1? I just think that they put together the perfect. No, I'm not going to say perfect, but almost perfect situation around Tua. And you look at it as last year when Tua's healthy, they're winning games. And now they added Vic Fangio to be the defensive coordinator. It sucks Jalen Ramsey was injured in training camp. So the cornerback room could struggle a little bit until he gets back. But I think because of how good the rest of the defense is, they'll be fine. And they're still going to have a top 5-7 unit on the defensive side of the ball. Then going into the playoffs, when you have a healthy Ramsey, it's going to look very scary. But the offense, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, we know the 1-2 punch that'll be. The O-line, it was actually pretty solid last year. As long as Armstead stays healthy, it should be a top 10 to 15 unit because they do have some guys who can play. Like Robert Hunt's become a good guard. Connor Williams is a good center. They added Isaiah Wynn from the Patriots. Hopefully he can fill a role there. I think Mostert has been a very underrated back throughout his career. He just needs to stay healthy. And last year he was healthy and he was good. But they also have Jeff Wilson. I think that the offense under Mike McDaniel is going to find ways to be productive, whether that's running the ball, throwing it, short and having them guys Waddle and Hill run after the catch, or they can throw it deep. And as you mentioned, Tua, yes, he may have one of the worst arms in the NFL, but he's still accurate throwing the ball downfield, and he's still able to do it successfully in this offense with Mike McDaniel and those receivers. So, with that being said, I think they're going to have a very good offense. On top of that, a very good defense. I love the coaching staff. I think they're kind of going to be kind of the 49ers of the AFC. And I'm looking at a 12 to 13 win team. I had them at 13-4. I moved them down to 12-5. But like, I'm gonna go through who I have them losing to. I have them losing in Buffalo, in Philly, in Kansas City, and then I have them losing a home game to the Jets. But like the wins, I have them losing to the Chargers too. That's the fifth one. So I have them beating the Patriots both times, beating the Jets and Bills once, beating the Broncos, Giants, Panthers, Raiders, Commanders, Titans, Cowboys, and Ravens. So, I mean, I could see them losing like to Baltimore or maybe Tennessee, but I still think you're looking at least an 11-win team with a ceiling of like a 13-win team. And I have them right kind of in the middle at 12-5. So I just think it's a very good team. It's hard to see them disappointing unless Tua gets hurt, which I guess some people can be predicting to happen. Personally, I'm not predicting that to happen, but if that does happen, that could be a reason why they finish second or third, or I guess even fourth. But yeah, the tough division. I really don't feel confident on any of these, to be honest. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to do some more work on this before our final predictions. We'll have all the teams into one, and it'll kind of be, we won't talk as in depth. That's what this was for. But yeah. Now onto the Bills for you. So why are the Bills still number one, even with the losses that they've had the last year or two?
I think the Bills they finally are in a spot where nobody's talking about them. You know, the past couple of years, I feel like in the offseason, it was like, oh, like Super Bowl, Bills, like they're gonna go to the Super Bowl. You know, they got a ton of hype, and I don't necessarily know if they were ready for that. I think last season, I think Josh Allen is obviously he's as good as dang near as good as any quarterback in the NFL, probably outside of Patrick Mahomes. And he had an elbow injury last year, and that kind of hurt him. And I think the thing with Buffalo is I 1 and 2. Honestly, this division, like you said, is crazy because I wouldn't be shocked if the Dolphins won. But I just think that this is a year they have to make the Super Bowl. Like I said with the Bengals, I think this is also the Bills have to make the Super Bowl this year because you've been hearing reports the last 2 or 3 years about Stephon Diggs being unhappy, and that's not going to change if they continue to lose in the second or third round. So I think all the pressure is on the Bills. They're not getting any hype, which is exactly what they need. And I think Josh Allen, he can elevate them to a level that I just don't think the Dolphins and the Patriots have a level that they can go to, like the Bills. I think people are sleeping on them. Just that, like last season, they should have gotten the 1 seed. Like people forget that. The only reason why I hate to say this, only reason why the only reason why they didn't even get a chance to get the 1 seed was because their game got canceled. Okay, it sucks to say that no one wants to say it, but they were 1 game behind and their game got canceled, so they didn't really get a chance. So people sleep on how good the Bills were last year, and I don't really think anything they did in the offseason is really going to change that this year. As long as Josh stays healthy, I have him at 12-5.
The Bengals should have won that. They were going to win that game. It was in Cincinnati.
You can't say that. It was like the second quarter. You can't say that, bro.
It might have still been the first, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
It was 7-0.
I mean, I'm saying they didn't have a chance. Like, they didn't even get like they got.
Oh yeah, they didn't get a chance to get the 1 seed.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. That's what I mean,
but they lost to the Bengals pretty bad in the divisional round, so I think that proved he was the better team there. But
yeah, I mean, Josh was also injured too. Josh was injured.
He was injured?
His elbow. He messed up his elbow like halfway through the year.
Oh. But anyway, yeah, tough division. Again, I'm going to continue to work on this before I finalize it because, yeah, like I don't know. This is just tough. Like, look, the more I look at it, like the more you talked about it, and the more I was looking at my own roster grading, I'm like, wait, I don't even have the Dolphins and the Patriots that different. They're like neck and neck roster wise. But I'm over here
Yeah.
predicting the Dolphins to win 13 or 12 and the Patriots to win 7 or 8. So I don't know. It's very tough to predict this division, but that's what I have for now. That's what you have for now. Again, gonna finalize it before the start of the season, but that's gonna be the podcast. Anything you want to say?
Nah, man. Excited for some football to come around.
Yep. All right.